Thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight, Black Voices. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at.
This is not about criminals. This is about causing chaos.
Cook County officials are calling out federal immigration agents amid ramped-up enforcement operations. And what federal cuts to minority-serving colleges could mean for local students. And a historic life and career in politics, we revisit our conversation with former Senator from Illinois, Moseley Braun, on her memoir. First off tonight, Cook County officials are calling out federal immigration agents for using what they say are deceptive tactics amid an immigration crackdown. Local leaders and community organizers say ICE agents are refusing to provide identification or even warrants in some instances. County commissioners today introduced a resolution asking agencies to notify commissioners of enforcement activity on county property or facilities like courthouses.
Now more than ever, we must keep strong lines of communication open between local government and community. Notifying commissioners of the presence of ICE agents means that we can connect directly to folks on the ground whose mission is to inform, to educate, and to protect.
Federal officials have argued sanctuary policies, quote, protect criminals over the safety of American communities. Federal education authorities are threatening to withhold grant money from Chicago public schools. That's unless the district agrees to drop its Black Student Success Plan and revise policies related to transgender students. The letter sent by the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights to the Chicago Board of Education President Sean Hardin argues the initiative is, quote, textbook racial discrimination. The district's Black Student Success Plan aims to bring in more Black teachers, reduce suspensions against Black students, promote teaching on Black culture, increase belonging, and close opportunity gaps. A CPS spokesperson says the district would not comment on ongoing investigations. For more on this story, please visit our website. Women being held in the state's Logan Correctional Center have filed several federal lawsuits as part of a mass action alleging an ongoing crisis of sexual assault and harassment. Uptown People's Law Center and the Chicago Alliance Against Sexual Exploitation, or CASE, say 7 women are plaintiffs in the case that also claims they experienced retaliation when attempting to report the abuse allegedly committed by correctional officers. Filings show from 2021 to 2025, 85 complaints regarding staff on prisoner sexual abuse were filed at Logan, but only 6 resulted in any disciplinary action and even fewer in criminal prosecution or removal. Logan is the state's main women's prison, about 3.5 hours southwest of Chicago. The state's first West Nile-related death has happened in Cook County. State and county public health officials say the man was in his early 60s, and testing confirms the mosquito-borne virus was a contributing factor in his death. They're also warning residents that the risk of West Nile virus in suburban Cook County remains high. So far, Cook County has recorded 33 cases of West Nile virus, almost twice the number of cases from last year, and 22 of those 33 have been neuroinvasive, meaning the central nervous system was affected. IDPH reminds residents to reduce standing water around your homes and to use EPA-registered insect repellent when outdoors. The Northsiders are playoff bound. The Chicago Cubs clinched a spot in the postseason this afternoon in an 8-4 win over the Pittsburgh Pirates. The team currently holds the top wild card spot. The division is still in play, but the Milwaukee Brewers have a comfortable lead with 11 days left in the season. It is the first time the Cubs have reached the playoffs since 2020. And on a programming note, we had hoped to be joined tonight by Karen Freeman Wilson, a co-chair of the city's budget task force, but she is canceled. We hope to have her on in the coming weeks. Up next, what federal cuts to minority-serving colleges could mean for Chicago area students.
Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, is made possible in part by the support of these donors.
Some local colleges are up next in the Trump administration's wave of federal funding cuts. The Education Department is cutting $500 million in grants to universities predominantly serving students of color, known as minority-serving institutions. The move is part of the president's effort to crack down on diversity initiatives. Joining us to discuss this are Z. Scott, president of Chicago State University, and on Zoom, Joyce Esther, president of Governors State University, and Prairie State College President Michael Anthony. Thanks to all three of you for joining us. So all of your schools are PBIs, predominantly black institutions, meaning at least 40% of your students are black. The Trump administration is saying that they are cutting this funding because schools like yours, quote, racially discriminate to meet government mandated quotas, and that is unconstitutional. President Z. Scott, what do you make of what the Department of Ed is doing?
First of all, our status as a predominantly black institution is one that we receive from the Department of Education. Each year we have to recertify that status, and like you said, it requires that 40% of our student population is black. But it goes on to say that at least 50% of those students have to be low income or first generation, and that your institution's ability to support those students cannot meet a financial calculation that means that you have the resources to support those students. We were recertified this year by the Department of Education under this administration as a PBI. And we have 2 grants from the Department of Education that are predominantly black institution grants. What it means to our students and what it means to all students who are all institutions that are PBIs, that we are at risk. There was a recognition in federal law that this category of students required significant and special support. And that was in legislation that was championed by then Senator Barack Obama, Representative Danny Davis in the House. And when the legislation was passed, it was passed to enlarge grant opportunities for predominantly black institutions.
And the Department of Education is describing this minimum requirement in order to receive this designation, 40% for black students, describing this as a quota. Would you classify your enrollment that way?
No, I would not classify it as a quota. I would classify it as leveling the playing field. Many of our students are coming from underserved populations and schools that had a difficult time preparing them for college. This is a grant to the institution and not to the student. And therefore, I do not view it as discrimination. I view it, the sort of the calculation, as questionable. They have not attacked the legislation, but they have attacked the institutions.
President Anthony at Prairie State College, how much of your school's budget relies on federal funding and this particular designated PBI funding?
Thank you so much for having us here too. The proportion of our budget for this particular grant is not very large, but it is critical to continue the support for these students. And I want to be really clear about this notion of quotas is so troubling because we're a community college, so it's important that I differentiate that. But community colleges and my colleagues on this call, we're recruiting for a quota. These are our students. These are your citizens, your constituents that are in this community that choose to come here. 90% of our students are from the Southland Chicago in our region. This is not a quota. This is who lives here. And so that it captures the title of PBI is a happy convenience, but it provides the government a way to understand the type of students we serve. And that's how we get the numbers.
Same question to you, President Esther. I know you are new-ish to the job compared to your colleagues, but how much of your school's budget would you say relies on this kind of federal funding and what it means for your school?
Yeah, my answer would be very much the same. And again, thank you. And newish meaning as of July. But I would agree with Dr. Anthony that it really is about the students we serve. It's not about recruiting. It's about meeting the needs of this area and the students who have unmet needs, the students who have maybe not had been served in our society earlier on. And so they need these extra supports. And we're also talking about not just about race, but we're talking about the impact of poverty, the impact of other kinds of things that manifest in their educational system. And so for me, I think that it is unfortunate, and I really agree with what Dr. Scott has said, is that it is about leveling the playing field. It's not about having someone get something extra. It's about making sure that all the students get what they need.
We talked about this, just a little bit, President Anthony. What was the original intent of these designations of, designating schools as minority-serving institutions and sending more funding that way as a result?
Sure, and it's the Department of Education, as Dr. Scott said, that for the designates these. And I think as a leader in higher education, but also as I work with our representatives, it is a very, very clean and efficient way to identify where students who need particular services are populated, where they're attending school. Again, the idea that this is a recruitment effort, or we are pushing students aside to get a certain quota of certain students, that doesn't make sense. It's not a thing. And so, particularly at the community college level, we're an open enrollment institution, and we have lots of seats available. Right? So there are more and more opportunities for students to come here of all backgrounds, and it does provide a designation that quickly identifies where some of our students who identify as Black, identify as different populations, do tend to attend, but it is not driven by a quota or any other kind of.
According to the Post-Secondary National Policy Institute, Illinois has the second highest concentration of predominantly Black colleges, second to Georgia. Data from the Department of Ed shows that Chicago State's student body is 76% Black and 7% Hispanic. Prairie State students are 54% Black and 23% Hispanic. Governor State is 41% Black and 20% Hispanic. President Scott, I mean, we just heard President Anthony discuss it a bit as well. How is it that that your universities, that your schools end up with this enrollment, with this student body, with, I won't say a concentration, but you have, you're predominantly Black, so you have a large enrollment of Black schools and some Black students, excuse me, and some Hispanic in your case?
So we're located on the south side of Chicago, and we're largely a commuter campus. So our campus attracts students who live in zip codes that are close to Chicago State University, and that is primarily Black. We did not start out this way. We started out as a teacher's college, but through changing demographics in our neighborhoods, we became predominantly Black, and that happened in around the 1960s. So the students who attend Chicago State come within a certain radius of the institution.
And so you mentioned, that shift began to happen in the 60s because I found it interesting that last week the administration eliminated this particular funding for MSIs, right, minority serving institutions, and then this week touted that it is diverting $500 million to HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, those founded before 1964, as well as tribally controlled schools. President Esther, what do you make of that shift in funding?
I'm not really sure what to make of the funding because both designations, whether it be HBCUs, whether it be PBIs, all of us, for all of the things that we've been saying already, our students want and need and deserve these services that we provide for them. And so I think moving some of the dollars out of the PBIs or HSIs into HBCUs, it just really feels like you're moving things around the chessboard instead of really addressing the true needs that we have.
President Anthony, we've got just a couple of seconds left. Would you describe, any differences in what the schools offer, HBCUs versus any MSI?
I think they offer a range of wonderful things for their student populations. The HBCUs have an historical designation. Depending on the type of institution they are, may offer research and different kind of programs that they do. But the reality is, to Dr. Esther's point, widen the pie, make the slice bigger. Let's not cut down. It's to take from one area to put to the other, even though funding is appreciated, of course, but widen that circle to have more of an impact on citizens.
Okay. Well, best of luck to each of you as you work through this. My thanks to Presidents Z. Scott, Michael Anthony, and Joyce Esther. Thanks, you all.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Up next, we revisit our conversation with former Senator from Illinois, Moseley Braun, on her new memoir. Moseley Braun is making waves in the push for more diverse leaders in politics. Her historic election in 1993 as the country's first Black woman senator shuttled her into the national and cultural spotlight. From her stint in the Illinois General Assembly to serving as the ambassador to New Zealand and Samoa, Moseley Braun made a journey through the ranks, but not without some obstacles along the way. She reveals how she broke through barriers in her new memoir, Trailblazer, Perseverance in Life and Politics. Bless you. Joining us now is the book's author herself, Carol Moseley Braun. Ambassador, welcome back to Chicago Tonight, Black Voices.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Congrats on the book. Of course, there have been decades of news coverage and books chronicling your historic rise in politics. Why did you want to tell your story this way?
People kept asking me, when are you going to write a book? This is my first, so it just made sense to do it now while I'm still here.
Are there other books in the works for you,
No,
do you think?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, unless there are questions with this one.
Unless there's questions with this one, and then you'll write a second one to clear that up. You open up in this book, of course, about your own personal struggles, from finding out and dealing with dyslexia in law school, not a great time, to growing up under an abusive alcoholic father. Why share those struggles now?
Well, it was part of my story, part of my journey, actually. My dad, he wasn't alcoholic, but he was troubled.
Troubled.
And it was a difficult childhood, and I thought it was important to tell the truth about all of that.
Describe that childhood and how that impacted you, how that influenced you.
He would sometimes be very violent and beat me and my brothers and sisters, but primarily me because I was the oldest, right? And so, you know, I survived that, and that's one of the reasons for the subtext of perseverance. You know, you survive being beat up as a child, you know, clearly that leaves an impact on you for the rest of your life. But I came through that, and maybe that was the grounding for all the rest of the, you know, kicking around that I got as a politician.
Yeah, because he was a musician, and you talk about, you know, him playing the piano, and there were certain tones or certain pieces that you would hear him play that would sort of, you know, foretell what you and your siblings knew what was coming.
His family was musicians. They came from New Orleans, and he played 7 instruments and spoke 5 languages. So the man was, in one way, he was genius, but on the other hand, he beat his family.
He was troubled.
Yeah.
Yeah. You say in your book that, you know, those challenges at one point, they took a toll on your self-esteem and your confidence, you know, the dyslexia as well. How do you think you overcame all of that?
Perseverance, and that's the subtext of the book, subtitle of the book. And so you just take one foot in front of the other, and if you just keep doing what you think is right, and, you know, it'll come out fine.
From reading the book, it seems to me like that perseverance comes from the people who raised you, the ancestors who came before you.
That's right. My mother was a great influence. She used to say, "Do the best job you can where you're planted," and so that became really a signal for me just to work hard at whatever it was that I was doing, and try to do the best. And that was the best expression of who I was, and it made a difference.
You came of age during the Civil Rights Movement, of course, got involved in some of that activism. What were some of the influences that shaped your involvement in social justice at a young age? You were even there that day at Marquette Park with Dr. King.
Right. You know, back to my dad, right? He was actually, because he was a difficult man, but he had a very keen intellect. And among the things that he did was introduce me to the principles behind the labor union movement when I was coming up. So between support for labor, support for civil rights, and the other lessons that he imparted, there was no other choice for me but to be active.
Many people that you know for your, decades-long work in politics, from the Illinois General Assembly to the Senate, that's how people remember you a lot. But you say in your book that your career in politics was actually accidental. How'd you get into it?
Well, there's 2 parts, actually. One was the bobolinks in Jackson Park, and I joined a protest because the park district was going to tear down some trees or tear down an area that had been populated by these little rice birds from South Carolina. And somewhere there's a picture of it, I haven't found it, but anyway, Park District, no, bobolinks, yes. So I was protesting, trying to protect the bobolinks, and that was one. But the second thing was that I had actually run for office before, unwittingly. I didn't know I was going to be my future path. But when I was in college, I was secretary of the Action Party, running for the student government leadership. And so I did that. I had no idea at the time that was a clue to where I was going to go with my career.
There'd be more running for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, later on, of course, you end up sort of struggling the balance of raising a family along with your dedication to public service, which is, of course, something that many working parents are familiar with. Do you think that there were often, though, different expectations for women and mothers in particular in public service?
Still are. Absolutely. It's funny, too, because when my son, Matt, who I adore, was little, he was asked, well, what does your mother do? His answer was, oh, she goes to meetings and parties.
Meetings and parties, because public service is just that easy.
So, but yeah, no, it was important to do, back to my mother, do the best job you can when you're planted. Being a mother was important to me, and so I wanted to do the best job that I could with it.
How do you think you did that?
By accident. I have no idea. My son is magnificent. He is one. I hope he's watching this. He's in Canada right now.
We'll send him the link if not.
Yeah, no. He's wonderful, and he takes good care of me. And I could not, I mean, I just consider myself so blessed to have gotten this wonderful son and wonderful family in spite of myself. I tried, but I'm sure I fell short.
As the first black woman senator, you were often scrutinized for your appearance, for your personality, but you, of course, wanted to be known for the subject of your work, the service that you're there for. How did you navigate that scrutiny on Capitol Hill?
I didn't do very well. I didn't win re-election, but I think so long as I figured out all I could do was my job, and if I focused in on doing that, I'd be fine. And as it turned out, I was. I mean, I am. You know, I'm not crazy.
I mean, was that scrutiny, was it ever hurtful?
A lot of times, yes, it was. But I don't dwell on that. That's part of perseverance. You kind of have to take that stuff and put it over there somewhere. And as Marge Simpson said, you just stamp on it until it goes away. You know, so you know, you just you can't let the naysayers and you can't let the negative things derail your effort, your path. And I never did. I just kept focusing on where I was going.
It's good to take advice from Marge Simpson.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, as we mentioned, there were some bumps along the way, of course. There was the Medicaid disclosure just before your election to the Senate, questions raised by your visits to Nigeria. There was reporting about high staff turnover when you were in your Senate office. How do you reflect on the mistakes you've made, the lessons you've learned, the criticism you received back then?
Well, I should have done a better job with my press relations, number one. I mean, that's kind of fundamental. I mean, that's pretty obvious because I did not do a very good job of communicating what I was doing because I was focused on my job. I was focused on passing legislation. I was focused on being the best senator I could. And I think I succeeded at that. I passed most of the bills that I filed, and I represented my state. That was the whole job because it's such a diverse, such a huge state with diverse, everything from Chicago to the little towns, Chicago to agriculture. You got everything in this state, and so I had to make sure that everybody got the attention that they deserved, that they needed, and that's what I tried to do.
I want to talk about today a little bit because there are two black women who are running for U.S. Senate now.
I supported both of them.
Representative Robin Kelly and, of course, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton. What would it mean to you if either one of them, you know, should end up winning and becoming the second black woman to represent Illinois? Well,
the good news is that it's the old, you're the first, but you don't want to be the last. So it would be wonderful if we could get a woman elected from Illinois, a black woman elected from this state. I'd be delighted.
What does it say that it will have been 20 plus years? I'm not mathing correctly. 30 plus years since the first woman did it. Since you did it.
You know, it says that sexism is sometimes harder to overcome than racism even. And I don't know why that's so. It's historical. I mean, I could sit here for hours and hold forth. Yeah, no, we're not doing that. But the fact of the matter is that the idea of electing a woman is harder for some people than the idea of electing a black person or a person of color. And why that's so is historical and social and cultural, et cetera. Okay. But I think it would be a good thing for our state.
All right. Ambassador Carol Moseley Braun, congrats on the book. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Again, the book is called Trailblazer: Perseverance in Life and Politics. And we're back with more right after this. And that's our show for this Wednesday night. Don't forget, you can get Chicago Tonight streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news. You can also get the show via podcast and the PBS video app. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10. It's finally happening after years of anticipation. The Chicago River Swim is set to take place this weekend. What to expect at the inaugural event? Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm that gives back to the community through law and philanthropy.